Hello and welcome to Rebecca is Obsessed with Buying Things on eBay and can't help but look at an eBay feed every morning of what new antique items are listed. So needless to say, this is going to be an antique unboxing video. I have just received in the mail my newest item, which I'm a little alarmed fits in a packet of this size. So we shall see, but I found this on eBay and as soon as it came up, it just caught me. The colors and the pattern just caught me. So I'm very, very excited to take you along with the unboxing of this new piece to my collection. Envelopes always make me a bit nervous as far as antique garments go because A, you don't really know how it's been packaged, and B, you don't know how it's been shoved in there, so it looks like at least with this one I won't need the scissors. And it is wrapped in tissue. I'm gonna carefully extract this. All right, it's free. Now let's go over to my table and take a look. Oh my gosh. This is so exciting. It looks really cool. Okay, there's definitely some shattering on the silk. Let's take it off of their tissue paper. I swear it almost feels like it's made out of denim or something. Oh, she's tiny, tiny. Oh my gosh, this is really interesting. Okay, it's definitely stained. Oh my god. The fabric though, I love it. What is it? No, maybe, I think it's a wool. It just looks like a denim. And they've done all of these stitch lines which further make it look like a denim. So that's like really weird. And it's got these little brass studs, I guess. Oh my gosh, this is really cool. It is. Wow, it's tiny. What is the waist on this? This must be like a young miss bodice. There's just no way that this would fit any adult. Let's see if I can measure this. The waist really dips down in front, so this might be a little bit challenging to measure. Oh, this is even smaller than the gimps from the last video. This is 10 3/4 laid flat, so 21.5-inch waist. So, oh my god, it's so tiny. The funny thing is, like, the rest of the bodice doesn't look small. It's just the waist that looks so absolutely tiny. I have altered my filming setup just slightly, and it's so precarious, so I hope this works. Okay, so let's take a closer look at this bodice now. It's very, very cool. I think that given the two-piece sleeve that we're dealing with here and the way that it comes down to like the lower part of the forearm, I think that we're looking at the early aughts here. So 1902, 1903-ish, because I've mentioned this in a prior video that had a sleeve that looked like it was trying for this look, but it was shorter. But that is kind of the years that I've seen this to be the most prevalent is when we have 1902, 1903-ish, when we have this longer sleeve. So what's interesting here is that this little stripy silk part of the sleeve, it only goes up to about 4 or 5 inches past the bottom of the gray wool. It goes up farther than that. So, and then we have the stripy silk, and inside this part of the stripy silk at least is not lined. We will take a look when we get to the top to see if that is lined, but the lower forearm part is not lined. The cuff, however, is lined, and it's lined with a different silk here, so it almost looks like the type of silk that would be used in a necktie. This cuff is, like the waist, kind of unbelievably small, and so I really can't open it up any further than this, so hopefully that's a good enough view of that interior there. But the interior lining here has actually been whipped down on top of the folded edge of the outer stripy silk, so you've got tiny little hand whip stitches going all along this edge. And same with on the upper part of the cuff as well, tiny little whip stitches going along this part also. I hope the lighting is good enough that you can see that. And the silk doesn't feel very fragile over here, but I did see a little bit of shattering in the bodice, so I'm just kind of going to treat all of the silk like it is quite fragile. Going up, I want to get into this wool a little bit and look at the top. So the top of the silk here is put on, there are 2 rows of stitches. There is first a row of what appears to be long machine stitches, or very, very even hand stitches that are still slightly long for hand stitches, and then followed underneath it by a row of long running stitches. Now, just my guess from not being able to see inside this, at least at this point, I don't plan to look that far in because that would probably put too much strain on any part of this garment. But my guess is that this is what is attaching the top part of the silk, and then this is what is stitching in place the bottom part of the polished cotton, because we can see just a little of the brown that is the polished cotton that makes up the rest of the sleeve underneath the wool. So this is like a lot of pieces in this sleeve. Now our wool back here is split, so we get a nice little flare going on. And it's cut as one, and then it just is flared open. So this isn't actually a seam, for example, right here. It's just that they've stitched it a little bit. Maybe they accidentally cut a little too far. It's hard to say. But gosh, all of these stitch lines for all of the decoration, it's so even. It's just wonderful. And I did want to point out these really fun studs on the tab of the sleeve, and they match the studs on the rest of the garment as well. This, by the way, is also hand stitched down. The cuff has been hand whipped down over the silk. So the silk of the sleeve is sandwiched between those 2 layers, the stripy outer and then the other stripy inner. This has been sandwiched between, and all of that has been done by hand, surprisingly enough. Now, as you can see from the sleeve, there are a lot of stains on this garment. So the sleeve has a lot of stains, and actually some that look like it is probably running, because there are a lot of stains here that are kind of that purplish pink color like the stripe. So unfortunately the dye, I guess, has run. Hard to say when that might have happened, but interesting that it happened. Let's take a look now at the bodice so that we can start digging inside. So one of the first things that I notice about the bodice, and I noticed this even from the listing, are these buttonholes around the neck. So I don't know whether that means there was maybe something additional around at the neck, maybe an additional collar, or maybe like a bow or something like that, but something I think clearly used these buttonholes to be held in place. So this gives kind of a faux jacket look, both with the way that the sleeves are shorter than the stripy sleeves, and then also this front, we have our kind of faux jacket. So let's just take a look here at how it's constructed. I'm going to be really careful with this part because we do have shattering, at least over here. So we have our gorgeous silk, stripy silk. I mean, that fuchsia, it is just fantastic. And it has been tucked over here at the top. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, even a fifth tuck that's actually fully underneath the jacket. And so those are all tucked about 3/8 of an inch, I would say, and then stitched in place, it looks like, via machine. And I think it's very interesting that you have a tuck that is fully under the jacket, which means that they must have done the tucks before adding the jacket part. That would be my guess. And all of this is just a fake section that is mounted on top of more of the brown polished cotton. I believe the same cotton that was used in the sleeves. So it is just, it's actually just a raw edge here, and it's stitched down with a pretty small hand running stitch just along this, mostly along this fuchsia stripe, but it does veer closer towards the edge as it gets higher. And all of that is also tucked neatly down into the waistband, which I believe was done before any of our lining was put on, because I can't see any stitches from this side, so the stitches must be buried under the lining on the other side. Some of our studs are starting to maybe rust. They're discoloring. It makes me think maybe a copper, because copper, I believe, is the one that turns green, and so I think that's what, oxidation maybe? And so our kind of bronzy coppery is actually going to a green tone over here. We also have a lot of pin tucks that make up the wool part of the bodice. So here we have another 5 pin tucks, but actually it keeps going around the entire way around the bodice. And so these pin tucks are a little larger. These look like maybe about 1/2 an inch, maybe even a little bit more than that. And so I don't know if we can even call them pin tucks at that point. They're tucks. And they're going all the way around the bodice, all the way around the back and everything, until they hit this front band with all of its nice stitches in place. Let's take a look at the back side while we're at it. So here we have our tiny, tiny back side. I mean, look at this. Oh, it is made of multiple pieces though. So the front, I believe, was all one piece, like each side was one piece. But the back, we have seams here, no center back seam. So our back is 3 pieces, I believe. We have our sides are, where's that the front? No, never mind. Okay, so the front is coming all the way around, almost like an 18th century bodice. It's coming all the way around to like a side back seam here, and that's all one piece. And they can, I guess, get away with doing that probably because the tucks help to give it such a shape, and the front is kind of cut on the bias as well. One tip, if you're handling antique garments and you feel anything catch, like your nails, file them immediately. So the back then is one piece from here to here, top to bottom, and then has our little banded collar and our little waistband. And this waistband, by the way, is very thick. Now, part of it is the lining, but I think a lot of it is just having all of these tucked sections come down into here, which they feel like they come down far, because I'm not feeling like a separation or an end to them. And then we have all of our, what basically amounts to quilting with all of these lines of stitching. Our sleeves are lightly gathered, but not a huge amount of gathering. This, unfortunately, is in no way going to fit my dress form, so I can't really show you what the shoulders look like, but you can also see where the shoulders meet up here, and you have that band that just ends at the shoulder seam. No trying to match tucks or anything, because that would be crazy. Oh, and actually, look, we've got a bar here on the neckline too, and one same on the other side. So whatever buttoned into the neckline, whether that was collar or whatever, maybe a necktie, also was held in place with bars. So I'm very curious to know what might have been in there, but unfortunately I'm sure I never will find out. All right, let's take a look at the interior. Oh, it just looks so nice. It's just so aesthetically pleasing. So this is actually really interesting. Okay, because we have our fitted lining here, and our fitted lining in the back, we have a center back seam, 2 side back seams, and then the seam that meets up with the wool. And I think what's going on here is that this was all assembled, those 4 pieces in the back, this was all assembled and then was basically flatlined to the back section, the outer back section, and then that was all treated as one. Likewise with the front, or at least the front to this seam. And that's why we get the wool on the interior here, both at the shoulders and at the side back seams. That is really interesting. I also love that they have actually just made their boning casings out of the polished cotton. Normally you see a whole separate boning casing going on, whether that's like a machine made one or a twill tape or what have you. But this is actually just made out of the exact same fabric. And as far as seam treatments here, we have sort of a scallop cut on these cotton seams, and then the wool seams are whipped down, and they're whipped just to the cotton. So they're not whipped actually down to the cotton of the bodice, they're just whipped to the cotton of the seam. Oh, this is so fascinating. Okay, I'm going to try to get it to a point where we can maybe lay the front a little bit more open. Here we go. Oh wow, look at that shape. Okay, so we've got some lovely darts here, 2 darts with a bone in each dart, and this dart's just folded, but this dart appears to have had the excess fabric cut off and then the edges tucked in, and that has been whipped over. So that is really interesting there. And then we also have, oh, I think this hand stitch line is from the edge of the striped silk on the exterior. So that is where it's stitched down to, holding that in place. Definitely some staining in the armpit. Got a little, what used to be, I think, a hanger hook here. And also 2 very, very large hooks here that must have connected to the waistband of the skirt that went with this. Oh my god, I wish I could have seen that skirt. They must have done some really cool things with this striped silk, I'll bet. So we have all eyes on this part here, and that is just on the lining until we get to just above the bust point, or just about the bust point, at which point the lining and the exterior are whipped together, and that is treated as one. But here it's just loose, and that would be so that this hooks together, and then this could just kind of hang over it. I think there's signs actually of hooks on the other side, but whatever was used on this side to close those hooks, whether that was additional eyes or maybe thread eye. Oh, actually, oh, I spoke too soon. There are 2 tiny little thread worked bars right here. So the silk section was closed with just those 2 thread worked bars that went to the 2 hooks on the other side. But all of the strain of being a closed bodice was put on the cotton. They didn't have any strain on the silk really, because it's just nice and voluminous and poofy there. So the arm's eye, it's first stitched by machine, and then the edges have been all whipped over. And the polished cotton is in fact the same from the sleeve to the bodice. That's actually fairly uncommon to see that. I would say it's more common to see a different cotton in the sleeve than in the bodice, which is odder to me. Like, this actually makes a little bit more sense. But, and also you can see where the stitch lines of the top just went all the way past where it was showing. Oh, and you also get a running stitch, really, really big. This is practically a tack running stitch. I mean, these stitches are every 1/2 inch, 5/8 of an inch, and that is done to tack down the gray portion of the jacket. So from just about above the bust up to the shoulder, that is all tacked down in place. Oh yeah, and actually this hanger hook is twill tape. The other one was silk, and this one is still fine. So I wonder which one was original and which one was not, or if they both were original, which seems odd, but I have a feeling this one was replaced at some point, and this one just since this one has been replaced, this one ripped. So the collar is faced with more of the brown cotton and stitched down by machine, and it's top stitched because these are the stitches that we're seeing on the exterior as well, and they were done as a decorative aspect on the exterior so that they would match the stitches over here. That said, based on the fact of the buttonholes and everything being here, I have a feeling this collar was not actually shown when the garment was being worn. So again, I wish I could see what it would have looked like in full with the collar and the skirt and everything, but that is so rare to find something that is all together. The only other place that's really interesting inside here is the waistband. So this part is separated, so I can actually kind of feel what's going on a little bit. I don't think you're going to be able to see it on camera because it's just going to be too dark, but the waistband is folded up about an inch past, and when I say the waistband here, I mean the gray thick waistband that's been quilted. It goes about an inch past in here, and then it's just a raw edge. I can't tell how far the bodice comes down into it still, even with it being open like that. Oh, wait. Now I'm confused. Oh, wait, no. Oh. Okay, so I figured something out. So remember how we went over how the wool here has been treated as one by the time it gets to this side seam? So that's all true, and then this was all made, and then the waistband was put over the top of everything else. So because when we look in here, which again, I know, I apologize, you can't really see it. When we look in there, we just see the bodice as if it's plain, as if it's without the waistband, and then that waistband is sewn down, and it is whipped down both top and bottom. Actually, some of the whipping is coming off on the exterior as well. In fact, oh, so that clears up what I was trying to figure out before, because this is an afterthought waistband, as in it's coming after the entire bodice is constructed. So all of these pleats and everything really do go all the way down into the bottom of this, because it is a bodice, and then there's basically a belt applied to the exterior. And the belt is whipped down top and whipped down bottom inside here, and you can actually see how remember when I was measuring it, the point of the bodice seemed like it went really low. That's actually the point of the belt. The point of the bodice curves up to here, so it's about an inch difference. And the bodice itself has just been finished over with a bias tape that's made out of the lining, and that actually goes even onto the other side. Where'd my hole go? There it is. So it goes onto the other side, so you can see that the brown just goes around, but they were like, hey, I don't care, I'm putting a belt on this. So, and the belt's gonna be whipped on and stay forever. So that is probably it for the interior of this bodice. I love the point that this comes to too. It's just so, oh, it's so good. It's just so pretty. So again, it's probably pretty hard to find the real measurements here. And I don't know, part of me almost wonders if this point is not so defined and it's like that she was actually super busty, and because of that the point is kind of pushing itself downwards, because if you were to put a large bust in here, for example, that point of the waist would go up. So just as an example, I'm going to very carefully put my pressing hem in there. And now that waist is going up significantly. So she very well may have had a tiny little back and quite a voluminous bust. And also keep in mind that this was the era of pigeon front. So even if she didn't have that bust, she may have padded to get the look of that bust. And I think that's really what we're going for here. It's a very, very pigeon fronted bust. And it's actually cool seeing that, because this is like high fashion look with the shape of the bust like that. Now, of course, because of that, any measurements that I do take really don't make a difference, because the measurements would include potentially stuffing. So it's hard to take a measurement of the bust there, but again, I think we were at what, a 21.5-inch waist earlier. And I will take a measurement of the wrist because that does seem quite small. Oh, okay, it's not as small as I thought, I guess. It is 3 3/4, and so that equals 7.5. It just looks small. So I think that is about it for this gorgeous bodice. Here are some nice close-up shots so you can really see all the juicy details of this bodice. You guys, that was really exciting. I paid a little bit more than I normally pay for eBay finds for it, but I think it was worth it because I was just so drawn to those stripes and they're so cool. And this, honestly, the stripes aren't even the coolest part of that bodice, right? That jacket with all of those lines of stitching and the little studs and everything, oh my god, it was just amazing. So this is definitely one that I'm super excited to have in my collection. Now, I am still checking eBay every day because I just do and I can't stop, but I am only interested in adding pieces to my collection that are interesting and different. So I think this one definitely fell into that category. One of the things that I have set for myself, and I actually set this quite some time ago, is that I'm not allowed to buy all black bodices, because for a lot of the ones out there, they're all black, and that gets A, hard to film, and B, just a little bit boring for my collection. I will break that rule if it's a particularly interesting bodice, but in general, I'm not allowing myself to buy any all black bodices. I have to be hesitant towards brown because I already have quite a bit of brown in my collection. And also, I don't do the whole white cotton thing. That just, honestly, like, most of them are not interesting. They're really boring. So I just really don't go for the white cotton, like, teens, Edwardian type stuff, shirtwaists. I just don't. So because I want everything to be interesting to you, and I want every bodice in my collection to have really different features. So I do check every day because of that, because you never know when something's gonna come up. And if you find a particularly cool eBay find, and you know, something that's on eBay that you think I should know about, please send it my way in the comments. I would love to you know, be put onto some more that maybe aren't coming up on my daily list. That said, I do have a budget that I stick to. So obviously I'm not traveling right now because of coronavirus, so I'm kind of using my travel budget for some of this, but I'm not allowed to spend really more than like $50 for a piece. This one went to about, I think, 54 because I forgot tax was a thing, but it stayed pretty close, so I still think it was worth it. Anyway, I do hope that you enjoyed this video and that it was interesting to you. Don't forget, I do have a playlist of all of my antique garments, so I will link that both up above and down below. Make sure to check out the other videos if you haven't seen them yet. And if you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, what with my regular releases coming out on Friday and my sewing vlogs on Tuesdays, but I do post every day over on Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help donate to my eBay Addiction Fund to keep bringing you more and more fun unboxing content, I do have a link to my Ko-fi account down below in the description. As I mentioned, I do hope you liked this video. Please give me a comment if you found it interesting, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!